Creativity and innovation are disruptive, and time-consuming, and unpredictable, and exciting, fun, and totally worth it. Hi, my name is Taylor Barnett, and I'm an assistant professor in the music department at Virginia Commonwealth University. I'm here to share some thoughts and experiences on incorporating creativity and innovation into the arts classroom. So, by way of background, I'm a jazz trumpeter by training, which means I love to improvise, to tweak and experiment with things that other artists have made, especially in collaboration with other people. I grew up in Charlottesville and had two great music teachers, Greg Thomas, my band director at Albemarle High School, and John Dirth, a legendary jazz trumpeter and bandleader who teaches at UVA and took myself and just dozens and dozens of young people over the years under his wing. They both modeled how to combine a rigorous dedication to improvement while maintaining a playful and creative approach. I'm always trying to implement the lessons I learned from them and from countless other great teachers and colleagues that have inspired me. In my work as an educator, from my first teaching gig at Maggie Walker Governor School and later at JMU and VCU, I've always found myself branching out from the typical way things are done, and trying things out with my students and bringing them along on my creative journey and process. Now, if I'm honest, I really have dual impulses about this, in that, especially as a younger teacher, I was worried about losing control of the class, or having things get chaotic or disorganized, as that's often how my creative process looks. So I found myself having thoughts like, oh man, it would be so cool if but I don't know. I mean, how would I assess that? Or how long will that activity or project even take? Or group projects are so hard to oversee. What if they just goof off the whole time? So there's these and 100 more reasons to avoid innovation and creativity in the classroom. But in the end, I just can't help myself, and a lot of the times I go for it and see what happens. Now, while I do certainly come up with some of these ideas on my own, I have found that these creative opportunities often present themselves in the form of student questions or interjections. And again, full transparency, my first reaction when a student suggests some big creative idea for us to do in class is often one of slightly jaded skepticism. In other words, the students just come up with an idea that's going to take 10 times more work than what I'm already asking them to do. But after having indulged some of these ideas and created lesson plans and assignments around them, I found that there's a lesson here for the educator, which is that students are more likely to put time and effort into something if they feel a sense of ownership and creativity. So tapping into that can be extremely powerful and can create a positive energy in the classroom that's infectious for everyone. With that as something of an introduction, I'd like to share with you all about a current project that I'm really excited about. I'm part of an interdisciplinary research team at VCU called CodeBeats, led by David Shepard and Douglas Krug from Engineering Computer Science. We're developing a curriculum to introduce the fundamentals of computer programming to middle school students by teaching them to code hip-hop beats. A few years ago, when Dr. Shepard first approached me about this project, he described the basic premise as this: the way computer science is usually taught is boring. Students learn to sort lists of data, or they move a cursor around the screen in a series of commands, and this just doesn't need to be the case. It could be interesting and fun. Also, the computer science field lacks diversity as it's overwhelmingly white and male. His hypothesis is that if we introduce computer programming to middle school students using a musical style that's fun, creative, and possibly more culturally relatable, that all students, including minority students, might be more likely to take more CS classes in high school. Dr. Shepard had enough of a musical background that he identified several parallels between the basic coding principles, such as repetition, lists, parameters, and syntax, and the way music, specifically hip-hop, is structured. The repetitive, layered structure of hip-hop beats makes them a perfect sandbox to learn to use computer programming concepts and techniques. So initially he contacted me because he was looking for a music faculty member to look over the grant language and make sure they were using the music terms correctly. However, during our first meeting, we both realized quickly that what he was describing was an actual music class, as well as a coding class. He needed a musician on the team, and I saw an opportunity to try something innovative and creative. In other words, what would John Dirth and Greg Thomas do? Say yes and figure out later, of course. So one of the things that excites me about this project is that it can draw in students who are more interested in the coding aspect, but as a result of the fun, creative approach to analyzing and manipulating beats, might be more inclined to continue studying and making music. Also, we all know that so many students are interested in music making, but in genres that are typically outside the ensemble-based course offerings, and who, more importantly, view music as something that they want to mess around with and experiment with and make their own recordings rather than perform one part of ensemble music that's written by someone else. And I really want to offer music instruction for these students as well. So in CodeBeats, I saw an opportunity to create a curriculum design that could teach fundamental music concepts, rhythm and meter, harmony, melody and style, arrangement, instrumentation, it's all there. And do so in a way where the end musical product wasn't necessarily the focus centrally, but the mechanism whereby the students gained an experiential understanding of the musical creation and process. For instance, what are the basic parameters of a drum backbeat? How do musicians tweak and change those parameters from one beat to another? What might happen if we took the kick drum pattern from one recording and combined it with the hi-hat pattern from another? Do they clash? Why or why not? This process of identifying the layers of the music and then experimenting with them is precisely how composers think, and I just love that about it. So I work with students interactively, having them sing, clap, and stomp, and beatbox, all with the goal of embodying the musical principles first, then proceeding to analyze and graphically notate them using a MIDI piano roll. Then the computer science teacher guides the students through a lesson that translates that musical experience into computer code. In 2020, CodeBeats received the National Science Foundation grant to create the curriculum and to test it out in 5-day summer camps. Now, Dr. Shepard had an idea early on that we could take the best original student-coded beats from the camps and, quote, release an album or beat tape out of them. It could be a recruiting tool and a way of celebrating the students' work. My initial thought was, well, of course that sounds like a good idea, but how on earth am I actually going to make an album out of middle schoolers' code? Are the beats even going to be any good? And so on and so on. I ended up saying yes, of course, figuring it didn't sound much like my hero teachers to say no to the idea. So at the big culminating event for last summer's camp, the students voted on their top 10 beats. I was pleasantly surprised at how cool many of their beats turned out. They each had some musical idiosyncrasies, but they also had character and at least one musical element that kept my interest and made me smile. Here's an example of one of the winning beats by King Cyrus. So to release these student beats, I hired DJ Harrison, aka Devon Harris, a brilliant jazz musician, multi-instrumentalist, and hip-hop producer, and VCU jazz alum, and had him make good-sounding mock-ups of exactly what the students coded, but played by him on his professional equipment. And once I heard these professional mock-ups of the students' beats, I realized quickly that though they were cool, it would actually be much cooler if we took them all the way there and made a real album out of these. And this is actually a core part of the hip-hop tradition, which is built on taking a beat, either through sampling it or just buying it from a beat maker, and then chopping it up, manipulating it, and then adding to it to complete a song. I decided to involve my VCU music students in making this album because I saw it as a way to try something new with my jazz form and analysis class. I made the tough decision to cut the unit where my students were going to study the ballads of Charles Mingus and Thelonious Monk and write original songs inspired by them. And I've done this for years, but I replaced it with a 4-week unit based around making this CodeBeats album. Each student, as well as myself, chose a beat or two to produce, and we used class time to brainstorm ideas and troubleshoot technical and creative issues that we encountered. There was no particular formula or roadmap for what we were creating, and this led to an intuitive, improvisational process with a very dynamic learning environment. While I still retained my positional authority, none of us was the default expert, quote-unquote. Rather, we worked as a creative team, leveraging all of our various backgrounds and strengths, and we worked together to make something musically excellent with these middle schooler coded beats. I learned so much more about each student's musical interests and background than I would have on the Monk and Mingus Ballad project, and I had the chance to honestly celebrate their unique contributions to the project. For my VCU music students, the plan to publicly release the album, including on all the major streaming platforms, was a key element of it. Just like when our student ensembles don't start practicing their music until the week before the concert, my VCU students' commitment and work ethic on this project was much higher, knowing that it would be for public consumption and that they would be able to share it with their friends on social media. So when my students brought in drafts of their recordings, I was not merely giving them feedback to help them get a better grade on a class assignment. I was acting as a producer on a real album. As a result, the students were very solicitous of feedback. They made more drafts and polished them further than they would have otherwise. Here's a short video that shows the result of what we made, including a short interview with Cyrus Parker, aka King Cyrus, the 7th grader who coded the beat.
Yo, what's up? I'm Cyrus Parker, aka King Cyrus, from Virginia Beach, Virginia. What I liked most was the coding process. It was very easier for me because I dabbed a little with programming before, so it was necessarily easy for me. I love making the beat part because I've loved music always. It was a little challenging for me, but I got through it because I love making music. I love coding, and it just was a very fun experience for me to get into that. What I learned from the camp was the coding beats part. Like, I never knew you could actually make music by coding. So that was literally the biggest takeaway from that situation.
Creativity and innovation are disruptive and time-consuming and unpredictable, but they are exciting, fun, and they are totally worth it. Thanks for listening. If any of this resonates with you, or if you're up to creative things, I'd love to hear about them. Feel free to contact me. I'll put my info on the last slide, and I'll leave you with the opening track from the Code Beats album. This has lyrics and rapping by MC Do Me Right, hip-hop artist from Northern Virginia who understood what we were all about and put it all into rhyme. Thanks again.
Code Beats. Yeah. Welcome everybody, please take your seats. We're at the corner where music and technology meet. Computer coding and introduction. Learn it by working on musical production. Like a stove, turn the heat up. Write the code, cook a beat up. It's not plain, this is deluxe programming, and we're jamming and we're getting to the crux. Stay focused on a coding mission. Break it down into parts like an algorithm. Whether up tempo or slow jam. In the process, learning how to program. Music and code might see resemblance. This funky beat I'm rocking to's the evidence. Making full use of technology. Gotta be creative, innovative, that's the policy. I wrote a song about it, there it go. If you didn't know before, well now you know.